Shall we get started? Good morning, everyone. Good morning. The quarterly meeting of the Texas State University System Board of Regents is now reconvened in open session. We have a quorum present, and for the record, the date is February 17, 2017, and the time is 10:04 a.m. For the record, Regent Edwards is absent. Let me start this morning by thanking our host again, Chancellor McCall, for a wonderful evening last night. I think everybody was very entertained and very impressed.
Well, I spoke with a mind reader after the event last night, and I learned some pretty disturbing things about some of you. Thanks to Carol Treadway for a job well done last night.
Carol, thank you very much. Thank you. Our first order of business this morning is the Student Advisory Board report. Let me ask, before we ask the presidents to introduce your Student Advisory Board members who are here, I'd just like to say thank you very much to the students who do all the work for this board and travel the way they do and all of their efforts that they put in. I know it takes a lot of time and commitment to do that, so thank you all very much for your time on this board. So let me ask each of the presidents to introduce their SAB members. Dr. Trout?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm pleased to introduce Alberto Aguilera, who's a senior from Laredo, Texas, and majoring in urban and regional planning and international relations. He's a student government senator at large. Also, we have Drew Gonzalez, who's also a senior. He's from Spring, Texas, majoring in accounting, and he's a student government senator.
Thank you. Dr. Shahan.
I'm pleased to introduce from Lamar Orange two people that you've met before. Our SGA president, Zedric Cesar. He's majoring in liberal arts, pursuing an AA degree in liberal arts, and a certificate in game design. And with him is Rebecca Dumasnil. Rebecca is a sophomore, and she's working on a degree in process technology.
Good morning.
Good morning, Regents. I'm pleased to introduce two students from Lamar State College, Port Arthur. Jessica Jones, who currently lives in Port Arthur and serves as our SGA president, and I'm sad to report that she's graduating in May. So we're gonna miss her quite a bit. Also with her is Bradley Fant, who is an SGA representative and also from Port Arthur.
Good morning. I'm honored to introduce three students from Sul Ross State University, two from our Alpine campus and one from Rio Grande College. First, Danielle Lucero, who is the president of our Student Government Association in Alpine. Her major is business administration. She's a graduate student in that. Her hometown's Gardendale, Texas, and continues her career goal to someday open her own vet clinic and take care of all of your dogs and cats and other pets. So, and Vince Apodaca. Vince is our SGA vice president this year. He's a sophomore in business administration from Anthony, Texas. And after graduating from Sul Ross, he's going to continue and pursue a master's degree in accounting. Upon receiving his master's degree, plans to become a certified public accountant and perhaps join law enforcement unless Charlie hires him or something. And then our RGC student body president, Pedro Samuel Navarro. Pedro is majoring in mathematics. He is a senior, and his hometown is Uvalde, Texas. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, Regents. I just have one person to introduce today because our vice president had to stay behind and work. She has a job off campus. Actually, our SGA president, who is attending today, is Jacqueline Bolden. She's a senior majoring in political science, minor in criminal justice. She's from Corpus Christi, Texas. She's also chair of the Student Advisory Board for the second year. She is a mentor under our freshman leadership program and actively involved in numerous other organizations on campus. And after her undergraduate degree, hopes to go to law school.
Very good.
Good morning, Regents. I'm pleased to introduce our SGA President, Justine Pina Russell. Justine has a 3.9 GPA. She's from Port Arthur, and we're delighted that she will be graduating this May with an associate's degree in general studies, after which she plans to transfer to Lamar University. It's been a delight to work with Justine over these last 7 months.
Good morning, Madam Chair, and we can't wait to have Justine join us. We have two representatives from SGA with us today. The SGA President, Aaron Laverne. His hometown is Houston, Texas. He's majoring in mechanical engineering, and he's a senior. And with him also is Marcus Anderson. He's the SGA Vice President, likewise hometown of Houston, Texas, majoring in business. And he is also a senior. He's also interested in construction management. We had quite a bit of conversation this morning about that, so thank you.
Thank you all very much and welcome again. So at this point, let me ask the chair of the SAB to come forward to deliver the report. Jackie?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Chancellor McCall, Mrs. Chair, and fellow Board of Regents. It's an honor to speak before you today. As you see, we're about to lose pretty much all of my student advisory board. Some of them have also been with me for 2 years, so it's been an honor to serve the students of our system. So the first item on our agenda is the Texas State University System Student Regent, as well as the Student Advisory Board. We've done a lot of restructuring, preparing for transition, and we hold conference calls in between our meetings. And our goal is to hold 2 conference calls throughout the month of March so we can have a report ready to be placed on the board book to prepare both the system, ourselves, and so everything runs a little bit smoother for the future meetings. In addition, the Student Advisory Board has benefited greatly from the support and advisement of the Student Regent over the course of this past year in attending our meetings, participating in our phone calls, our conference calls in the case that we have any questions about system issues. We're very grateful for that, and we hope that this is something that can continue over the course of the Student Advisory Board. However, we do firmly believe that the Student Regent should have a vote at the table. In doing research, and we will continue to do research, we have found that the California system, along with the University of New Mexico, has permitted that the Student Regent be a voting member. While it is just one vote and one voice, it is the voice of over 80,000 students, and we hope that in a system that first allowed the Student Regent to even be a part of the discussion, would eventually be the first in the state of Texas to provide that vote for the students. Moving along, we also provided a resolution. This is the first resolution we've ever passed as a board that we're pretty proud of. The resolution just basically outlines what we discussed at the November meeting. We took a vote. We put it in the form of a resolution. The board, in discussion, we still are not in favor of the online fee waiver that was passed for Sam Houston State University. We believe that that sets a precedent for other systems, and as the student body president from Sam Houston State University, I've received and still am receiving, I had one just the other day, numerous emails from students with concerns about the rec center. We've held a forum, and we appreciate the support of the board. They do see that it has materially impaired how just one division so far can function. So that's outlined in our resolution, and we would appreciate if everyone could read that. Lastly, the green fee. This is an initiative that we're hoping to implement throughout our system on our individual campuses. It's a $5 fee for renewable energy that can be used in whatever fashion the students at our campuses would like to use it for. So recycling bins is something that Sol Ross is very passionate about and would like to use the fee for. At Sam Houston State University, it may be helping with the the water air condition recycling system, or with solar power energy, anything of that nature. But this is an initiative that the board's really passionate about, that we would like to have on our voting agenda for the upcoming SJ election, so the student body could vote on that. So that concludes our report. Thank you so much.
Very good. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you very much, Jackie. And thank you again to all of the SAB members for being here with us this morning. Our next order of business is the introduction of the Chancellor's Fellows by Dr. John Hayek. And I understand that Dr. Hayek has a handout for us, I believe, or if it's on the screen. Yes, it's in front of it's in front of you. Thank you, Dr. Hayek.
Thank you. Good morning. It is my pleasure to introduce this morning our inaugural Chancellor's Fellows for 2017. Just as a reminder to the board, this is a new academic program introduced by the Chancellor this year to engage a select number of faculty leaders across the system on an annual basis to take a leadership role within the system and to really focus on some critical areas of academic affairs and student success. The program is intended to provide a powerful talent development opportunity for the faculty members themselves to get a better sense of the system and what's happening in higher education at the state level. But also it will allow us to build a network of faculty leaders across our system to the benefit of our system and to our students. During their year, the fellows will seek out national best practices from across the country and talk with our system leadership and receive input from them and really try to take some student success strategies to scale across our system. For the first year of the program, the Chancellor's Fellows will really focus on key areas of student success. And so I'm pleased to introduce the 3 faculty members who were awarded the Chancellor's Fellowships for 2017 this year. The first is Dr. Ni Song from Lamar State College Orange. She's an associate professor in the Division of Health Sciences and Workforce Technology. And she received her PhD in molecular and developmental biology from the University of Cincinnati. And during this year, she's going to be focusing on ways to enhance student support programs, particularly at our 2-year institutions. Dr. Ni Song. Our second fellow is Dr. Brian Loft, who is the associate professor in the Department of Mathematics and Statistics in the College of Science and Engineering at Sam Houston State University. Dr. Loft received his PhD in mathematics from the University of Oregon, and he's going to be focusing in on improving math pathways across our system in addition to promoting effective teaching practices. So, Dr. Brian Loft. And our third Chancellor's Fellow is Dr. Jane Liu, who is the professor in the Department of Computer Science in the College of Arts and Sciences at Lamar University. Dr. Liu received her PhD in Computer Science and Engineering from the University of Buffalo as part of the SUNY system. And she's going to be focusing in on identifying and helping overcome barriers to student success, particularly in the first 2 years of college. So, Dr. Liu. So we hope at a later moment in time during the year, after they've done some discovery and looked at some of our data and information and really have some findings and recommendations, that we hope to be able to bring them back to the board and share some of what they found.
I love this program. I think it's going to be very, very fruitful. So I was thrilled to hear about it a few weeks ago. So thank you very much for moving forward with this.
And I look forward to working with and learning from you over the course of this next year and benefiting the system at large. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. Dr. Hayek, I understand you're about to introduce our next speaker. The next order of business is a presentation by Dr. Jerry Cook, Executive Director of the Texas Invasive Species Institute and a professor of biology at Sam Houston State University. And we'll hear about the Texas Invasive Species Institute. Dr. Hayek, would you?
Great, yes. It's my pleasure to introduce another one of our star faculty members, Dr. Jerry Cook. Dr. Cook has just simply been invaluable, really, in just promoting and supporting the work of this, really the system's first joint research project, which was launched back in 2011. He's held numerous campus leadership positions at Sam Houston State University, including Associate Vice President for Research, Chair of the Department of Biology, interim dean of graduate studies and interim dean of the College of Science. In addition, nationally, Dr. Cook has served as a program director at the National Science Foundation and was also given a prestigious appointment by the Secretary of Interior to serve on the Invasive Species Advisory Committee, which provides expert advice to the National Invasive Species Council on a wide range of federal priorities and emerging issues within the U.S. Department of the Interior. So if you could please join me in welcoming Dr. Jerry Cook.
Thank you, John, and Regents and Chancellor, and I want to especially thank the Chancellor because this institute I'm going to talk about really was possible because the Chancellor said we're going to make this a systems-wide initiative, and we took off in 2011, and we've been increasing our capacity ever since. So thank you, Chancellor.
But you didn't point out my mistake. I named this organization the Institute for the Study of Invasive Species, or ISIS for short. And so we quickly had to rebound and change the name when world events changed.
Thank you, Chancellor. I was going to mention that. Like we just mentioned, we have been established since 2011. And I think maybe to start, I should tell you just a little bit about how this came about and why we have this center. In a Chief Research Officers meeting in 2010, we were looking at areas where we could call areas of excellence within our system. And we started looking at our faculties, and one area that really stood out was that we had a lot of people working on invasive species and endangered species, and a lot of people just working at the organismal level on important species in the environment. And so with that, I organized a symposium. We brought people from all of our universities to Sam Houston State. We had a day-long introduction to everyone. Everyone gave a little talk, and we decided that this was an area that we could be really good at, and maybe an area that we could be better than anyone else. So with the Chancellor's help, we launched this institute, and then it was, where do we go from here? The reason for this, the need for this, is that invasive species cause a lot of damage. So the number that's up on the board is at least $130 billion worth of damage per year in the US. And these are numbers from 25 years ago. We don't really have a handle on how much damage is being done by invasive species. It's probably more like $300 or $400 billion per year in the United States. In Texas, that number's got to be at least $10 billion per year. And if you put this into perspective, that is more than all the natural disasters put together. The problem is it's a natural disaster that's happening every day, and it doesn't get the attention of a hurricane or a tornado. But really economically and even impact on people, it's giant. And so there is a need for this. There's a picture up on this screen. You see feral hogs, and it's a prime example of this. Texas leads the world, I think, in feral hogs. And I always say to people when I meet them and we talk about this, how could this happen in a barbecue state? How do we have this problem? And I was traveling around Washington with the Chancellor once, and we were talking about this, and he came up with a very good perspective on why they're a problem. He said, you know, they're very prolific. Feral hogs have litters of about 12 and 13 survive. And I think it does seem that way.
Didn't the Spaniards bring those?
Yeah, and they introduced them intentionally
Yeah,
for a food item. They thought if they would establish, which they did, that it would be a constant supply of food.
Yeah. And they are.
And they are. But we can't eat them fast enough. So anyway, we came together and we decided to form a comprehensive Center on Invasive Species. By comprehensive, I mean that it had all of the aspects of working and dealing with invasive species. And there are other institutes in the United States. In fact, we belong to an organization that you see on the board. There are dots. These are the major invasive species centers in North America. And of those, there are some, like Colorado State, that really specialize in GIS and modeling to predict where invasive species are going to go and what they're going to do. But that's pretty much what they do. The University of Georgia has a center that is very big in outreach, and they create apps, and they do a lot of good work. But that's pretty much what they do. And what we formed is really the only comprehensive invasive species center in the country. And I think that's a big point. We essentially are doing all the components, and we're the only ones doing that. So just in that aspect, I think the Texas State University system has something they can be very proud of, because we're doing them very well. The items that we do are listed there, those that make us a comprehensive center, and I want to just say one thing about one of them. That's early detection and rapid response. Everyone agrees that this is a key to fighting invasive species. So if we could catch something right as it comes into the country and eradicate it, it's never a problem. But here is the problem in doing that. How do you get funding for that? So I went to Washington, and we had a couple of these incipient species that we thought, well, if we get a little bit of money, we can knock it out. And I was told by a congressman flat out that if I give you money for this and you wipe it out immediately, no one has seen it, no damage has been caused, and how do I answer to the taxpayers that I spent their money? And that's the problem. So what we do is we normally wait until it's a giant problem, and then we put money into it and it becomes a management issue. So what's really needed, and we've been working at this, we haven't been successful yet, but what we need is money for a strike team that can respond to these things and really do the job. And we're going to keep pushing that. We're going to make that happen. And I think we will be, everyone in government, the government agencies, is saying this is what we should do. We just haven't figured out a way to fund it. But if we do that, and we will do that, I think we will really stand out even more than we are now. And I just killed my slides. There we go. So I know I don't have very much time, but I wanted to give you just a little sampling. If I talked about all of our projects, I could keep you here until this afternoon. But I promised John and the Chancellor that I wouldn't do that. So I just want to show 3 things that we're doing. One of those is honeybee, working on honeybees. And you probably know they have a lot of problems right now, a lot of diseases. So let's put the whole honeybee situation into perspective. 500 years ago, there were not honeybees in the United States. In a way, they're an invasive species of their own. They came with the early settlers, and they spread. They probably caused big economic problems at the first, but then they became a guest that was very beneficial to us. Most invasive species don't do that, but they did. And so what's happening now really is that we're relying on honeybees for pollination because they've replaced native pollinators, and we're relying on them for food from honey. And so now what's happening is their natural enemies are catching up with them. They have varroa mites, they have tracheal mites, they have colony collapse, which is probably mostly a virus. They have a lot of problems, and these are the same problems that they have in their native lands of Europe. But now they've caught up with them. So it is a big problem. We're working on that. We've been funded for a couple of years by the USDA to work on this. And one interesting thing that we've found, 2 interesting things. One is that there are different strains of honeybees, and some are more resistant than others. So we've used genetics to look at the different strains, and believe it or not, most of the strains that we have in Texas came from the Middle East. We think of the honeybee mostly coming from Italy, but the strains we have in Texas are mostly from the Middle East. How they got here, who knows, but that's what we've got. The other interesting fact is that the Africanized honeybee that's moved up on its own is the most resistant to the diseases. So probably not a good thing to rely on, but those are just some of the things that are coming out of our research. I mentioned this early detection rapid response. We've been involved in that in beetle surveys. There are a lot of invasive beetles starting to come into the state that have the potential of really damaging our forests. So we're doing a lot of surveys. We're looking at those. We're trying to help eradicate some of those before they move on. One that just came in this year was an ambrosia beetle that attacks sassafras trees. And you may think, well, we like sassafras, but it's not that big of a deal. But the other thing they like are avocados. And while we don't have a big avocado industry in Texas, imagine if we don't stop them, they move to Mexico and to California. So it is kind of a big thing. I have several slides on the bark beetles. I'll just go through those. We're doing a lot of work on those. We're also working on lionfish off our coast, and it's the same classic example. Lionfish have simply got away from their natural enemies, and those that are multiplying and invading the Gulf essentially have no parasites, and so our researchers have found that. So here's the problem though, how do you control that in a big ocean or introduce their parasites back to them? It's a very difficult problem. We don't limit ourselves to Texas, and so we have a researcher working in Alaska, although some of the geese that she's working on come to Texas for part of the year. And what's happening with these is that they have parasites now on heavy loads that have moved over from geese from Russia. Another Russian influence, I guess, that's in the news a lot lately. And then finally, we think that we do outreach very well. And in fact, we have a website. I encourage you all to look at our website. And it's an award-winning website. It didn't start out so good, but we've got it up to speed. We've won awards lately, and we do a lot of outreach. We go to a lot of schools. We go to master gardeners, master naturalists. We speak to anyone that we can with the manpower we have. And it's a huge success. And in fact, to show the success, I was just contacted a couple days ago that the Science Olympiad this year, they hold every year for high school students across the state, invasive species is going to be one of the topics. So the word is getting out. We do have a lot of partners, and I will close by showing some of the partners that we're working with. We've gotten funding from a lot of these people, but some of them we just work collaborative with this group. And so with that, hopefully I've stayed within my 10 minutes, and hopefully you have a better perspective of really this great center that I think we've created. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cook. Our next order of business is the Texas State University System Foundation update. Mike Wintemute, will you come forward, please? And Mike, again, thank you very much and congratulations on a very successful event a couple nights ago with the Foundation Gala.
Thank you, and we had a lot of help in that effort, both from our event planner and fundraiser, Leslie Sullivan, to a lot of the staff on our team, and of course the generous donors, many of whom are in this room, so thank you for a great event. This is your foundation update, which will primarily be looking at items from our most recent meeting on Wednesday at this hotel, as well as closing out the year in 2016. I want to begin with an overview of our investments in 2016. We closed out the year with roughly $7.6 million across all funds. We have 4 funds that are managed by our friends at LBJ Family Wealth Advisors. Nearly $1 million in cash, $3.8 million in fixed income investments, about $2.4 million in equity funds. And additionally, we have about $350,000 in a state tax pool account that was set up to cover obligations related to Hurricane Rita. That remains there and will for some time, at least for the current year. How our investments performed in 2016, our undesignated account, or basically our general operating fund, saw a return of 3.7% on the year. But this is the account that we use for our largest obligations over the course of the year. So the portfolio is very low risk. If you look at the non-cash, non-treasury portion of the portfolio, which makes up about 37%, you see a much better return of about 11%. And our 2 scholarship funds, the Grow Your Own Scholarship and the Kimple Scholarship, saw returns on the year of about 6 to 8%. Next week, we will be sending information to our institutions regarding the 2 scholarship programs in the process for selecting recipients this year. The process is going to be similar in previous years, but I wanted to mention one change which was approved by the Foundation Board earlier this week, and that is that we've changed the Grow Your Own Scholarship from a forgivable loan to a contract. And under this new agreement, recipients would be required to pay back the scholarship in full if they don't fulfill their obligations of completing their degree. So if the recipient fails without good cause to complete their degree, if they fail without good cause to accept an employment offer from one of our institutions, or if they accept an offer but don't stay there for 2 years, they're responsible for paying it back in full over 36 equal payments. And for purposes of this agreement, good cause would be an illness or injury that would prevent them from completing their program We also gave the board sole discretion to determine other cause, the death in the family or whatever the foundation board would deem would be appropriate in an unusual circumstance. This is the status of our Grow Your Own program. We have 5 active recipients. We will be adding at least 1 more this year. Here you see the progress of each student. The funds used to date are in green and the funds remaining in blue. This month is also the beginning of the nominations process for the 4 Regents Awards, which will be awarded later this year. So a call for nominations was sent out on February 1st. Over the next couple of months, there's a process that's different for each award, but we'll be receiving and reviewing nominations with the selection of award winners later in the year. The Regents Professor and Regents Scholar Award will be recognized at the November meeting. The other 2 awards, the Regents Teacher and Regents Staff Member, will be announced at that meeting, but they'll be recognized in person in February, 1 year from now. And a final word on our foundation gala, which, as I said earlier, was truly a team effort, not only by the system office and staff and our chancellor and Leslie and her team, but also our donors, many of whom are in this room, who were very generous in their support. We set a goal this year at the outset of raising $250,000. We have come just under 300,000, so we're going to call it 300,000 because we like to round up. And we're looking forward to maybe after a little bit of a break, planning the next one in a couple of years. And that concludes your report. Thanks.
The only other addition is we've asked the LBJ, the investment firm, to make a recommendation on a little more aggressive of an investment. And we've got probably one of the most conservative investment strategies that we've ever seen. But that's what it was designed to. They only did what we asked them to do initially. But we've missed a big uptick in the market, and we're not going to try to make up for it, but we're going to just try to increase our yield a little bit, because if you try to catch it too fast, you end up going the other direction. So, but that's the only other thing I have to say. Okay.
Regents,
Thank you, Mike.
any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Our next order of business is the approval of the consent agenda. These items are found at the end of each section of your board book. Are there any items members want to remove from the consent agenda? If not, I move to adopt all items on the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Regent Scott. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Having approved the minutes and the consent agenda, the remaining item under general motions is an informational item outlining the dates and locations for future board meetings. So at this time, I'll now accept public comments. Is there anyone present who would like to make a public comment? If not, we will move on. Our next quarterly meeting will be May 18th and 19th, 2017, at the Texas State University campus in San Marcos. Dr. Trouth, we look forward to seeing you there. This concludes the meeting of the Board of Regents for the Texas State University system. If there's no objection, we will adjourn the meeting. And I move to adjourn the meeting. The time is, thank you, Regent Garza. The time is 10:38 a.m. Thank you, everyone.
Good job, Roseanne.